What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Legends of Tomorrow, Season 3, Episode 18, otherwise known as the season finale of Legends of Tomorrow, titled The Good, the Bad, and the Cuddly, which, after watching the episode, is a very fitting title, because The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a Western film, and then the Cuddly, Beebo is very cuddly. So this episode had a lot to live up to, because I'm not talking about the finale here for this segment. I'm talking about the rest of the season. The rest of the season outside of the finale was, for the most part, really great. The way it's set up, Mallus, or how he's calling himself now, Mallus, which I'm not gonna call him that because I'm pretty sure Mallus is a word. It's spelled differently, but it's a word, I'm pretty sure. And Mallus, I'm just used to calling him Mallus, and just like Mick Rory, I'm gonna continue calling him Mallus because I guess I'm stubborn. I don't really know. It's just that Mallus doesn't sound right. So Mallus in the season was set up so well, and his reveal in the last episode was incredible. He looked amazing, and I'm going to talk about the actual finale later, but for right now I'm just going to say he looked amazing, even better in this episode than the last one. And also with the totems, they have to build that up throughout the season, and this episode had a lot to live up to in terms of that. And for the most part, it lived up to almost everything, except for, like, Mullus's actual personality. He looks amazing. Like, the CGI for Mallus, compare the CGI for Mallus with the CGI for Steppenwolf, which is a comparison I've seen a lot on the internet. Compare these two with the budgets, because Justice League had, I'm pretty sure, the biggest budget for any movie ever, or at least in a while, and I'm not counting inflation, just straight up dollars. $300 million was the biggest budget for any movie ever up until that point, and Steppenwolf looked pretty bad for the most part. I'm pretty sure in my review I said he looked good, but just looking at him since then, he looks terrible. And then compare that with Mallus on the tiny budget, or in comparison to Justice League, Legends of Tomorrow has a tiny budget, and compare the two designs and CGI. Mallus just looks so much better. He looks more threatening, he looks more detailed, which is insane, and he just looks more like a character rather than just a bunch of CGI. So the Legends of Tomorrow CGI department did a great job on Mallus, probably the best CGI creation in the Arrowverse up until this point. That's not for sure, because there's also Gorilla Grodd and Solivar and King Shark, but Mallus has gotta be right up there. It's just that he didn't really do anything in the episode. His CGI is amazing, he looks cool, but the actual character didn't really do much in the episode. All he did was come out of his cage. That was in the last episode. All he did was say that his name is actually Mallus, and then he fought the Legends, and then he got distracted by Rip, which I thought was a pretty stupid scene. I didn't really like that sacrifice. I thought it felt like that Rip, it was a really forced sacrifice because he didn't really need to do that, and I didn't really like that. I feel like it wasn't really fitting for him to die there. I really didn't want him to die. Just a bunch of missed opportunities with the character, especially with Booster Gold possibly showing up one day and him having a storyline with him, because Booster Gold is Rip Hunter's father in the comics, so that would have been a cool dynamic. But moving past that to Mallus, he didn't really do much, like I said. All he did was fight Beebo in the end, and he kind of went out like a bitch. So Mallus looked really cool in this episode. His fight scenes were amazing, but the actual character wasn't great, and that's really the only things I didn't like about the episode. I just wanted to get the things I didn't like about the episode out of the way so I could talk about the things I did like. The things I didn't like I said, were Mullus's actual personality or his character, and because he didn't really do much, and Rip Hunter's sacrifice, which I didn't like. But everything else about the episode was honestly so good, so much fun, and just really fulfilling for the season. So in my trailer breakdown for this episode, I said I was torn between whether or not I wanted the Legends to take Mallus out with using the actual totems, or, since that didn't work in the previous episode, go think of some out-of-the-box way. And the season finale for this season actually came out, obviously, and it showed me that you could do both. It did both, with using Beebo instead of the actual totems. Like I said, I was torn between which one I wanted, but it gave me both. They used the totems to create Beebo, which wasn't really explained much. But I mean, I understand it. It makes sense. They put their totem powers together to create a being of pure good. I'm pretty sure that's what they said. Which, I mean, it makes sense, because I mean, all they had to do was show that one scene of Amaya going back and seeing how the totem bearers took out Mallus in the past, and it just made sense. So, and then Beebo looked pretty cool. Honestly, the CGI for Beebo was cool, and the way the season built up Beebo and the totems coming together to beat Mallus, you think about it, it worked so well. Because even though he appeared in just like one episode, he was a big thing, and then he appeared for a little bit in another episode. Beebo was a big figure throughout this episode, even though he appeared in a limited amount of episodes. So the fact that now in this episode, the third episode he appears, he's the thing to take out Mallus along with the totems, because that's the totems and an out-of-the-box way. So I think it's the perfect way to take out Mallus, and the fight scene between Beebo and Mallus was honestly amazing. The CGI was so cool. I couldn't help but just have a huge grin on my face seeing Beebo, this cute but humongous, cuddly, pure goodness, or a version of Voltron or whatever, take on this huge demon and win. It was pretty cool. Now, Mallus didn't really put up much of a fight. He had like one line also when he said, "You can't defeat me," or something like that. But I mean, just looking at the fight scene, it looked so good that it didn't really bother me that much. So honestly, that's a huge plus for me in that department. The way they use the totems, as well as think of it out of the box way. And I also got to see them actually use the totem powers against Mallus, like one-on-one, not one-on-one, but each totem by themselves individually against Mallus in the first fight scene. So honestly, we got the best of both worlds in this department, and that is awesome. I know I said I didn't really like Rip's sacrifice in the episode. It's just because it didn't really mean anything, because it just seemed to me that he really wanted to die in that scene because he knew that it wouldn't kill Mallus, and that's really the problem with the scene. It's that when you have a character that's sacrificing himself, if he doesn't actually believe that what he's doing will save the heroes or like take out the bad guy, then it's not really heroic. It's kind of suicidal. So that's why Rip's sacrifice wasn't really much of a sacrifice, rather it was a suicide, so that's why I thought it wasn't that great. Now, the episode had another sacrifice, which I thought was so much better, and that was Damien's sacrifice to save Nora Dark, and that was just so fitting. I said in my trailer back then for this episode, and I know I already said something similar to that, but I said that I think Damien Dark should die in this episode because, like, that's something they do on shows a lot. When you redeem a bad character this much, they usually sacrifice themselves in the end for the ultimate redemption, because there isn't really much redemption for Damien Dark at like any point, because he killed Laurel. You remember that? He killed Laurel. He was trying to destroy the world. So the fact that that they actually redeemed him was actually believable. What do you think about what he's done? You think that he shouldn't really be redeemed. So really, the only way to fully redeem him is for him to sacrifice himself for the ultimate redemption, and it was for a good cause too. Unlike Rip Hunter, he sacrificed himself to save his daughter, which was so fitting for the character that I actually really liked his sacrifice. It wasn't really that much of a sad moment. I mean, it was a little bit later when Nora was screaming "Dad" or something like that, or "Daddy," I don't really remember, but it was just a fitting sacrifice, and I think that his character should die just because he is a very minor character in the comics, and even without that, he has been a little overused. So I think that in the Arrowverse. So I think that this sacrifice was actually pretty perfect. The last big thing that happened in this episode was that Amaya left the Legends, and while technically that is true, she's not really leaving the Legends of Tomorrow, the show. The actress who plays her is still a series regular in Season 4, which I actually don't like that. I really like the fact that she left the show just because it's always bothered me how she stuck around even after she took out Reverse Flash, because that was the only reason she joined the Legends, and for her to stick around with the Legends really might affect the timeline drastically. So it kind of bothers me how she doesn't just go back to 1940, and I just think that Amaya Jiwe, the character, should be retired at this point. I'm not saying Vixen should be retired. In fact, I think that the other Vixen, Mary McCabe, should return to the show, and she should be recast just because there's been so many problems with the actress. She's just not able to return, and it's clear that Legends of Tomorrow has wanted her to return multiple times, and like in one of the previous episodes, the one that Kwasi died, and she's back now, but the one that she died, it's pretty clear that they really wanted Mary McCabe to be in that episode, so they should just recast her, and especially with this time change that Amaya did, she could look slightly different. It doesn't really matter because they've recasted characters before, and it's fine, especially when a character's been gone for so long, and especially when an actress just for like really doesn't want to return or can't return. So I think that either way, they should have retired Amaya Jiwe's character, and Nate should have erased her memory. The reason he didn't erase her memory is definitely to open the door for her to return, and she is returning, but I really like the fact that she left the Legends, and I think that I would have preferred it to be permanent. So the last couple things to talk about is one, Sarah's speech, which I thought was really awesome. It's one of the best quotes from her ever. I really like, though, how they cut out the rip part from the trailer, just because, one, it doesn't spoil anything, and two, when you actually watch the episode, you feel like it's a new extended version of the speech you saw in the trailer. So that was really cool. And then another thing is that Jefferson Jackson was in this episode, which really, even though he didn't really need to be there for the most part, I really like that he was, because we saw how his story ends with him being married, and you see, I'm pretty sure he has a daughter. I don't really remember if it's a daughter or a son, but I'm pretty sure it's a daughter. So that was like, it really gave closure to the character that we haven't gotten before, and I don't think he should return ever again, just because the closure for the character, it was so good that there's really no need. And another thing is the fight between the Legends and this army of history, meaning the Romans, the Vikings, and the pirates. That was an awesome fight scene, and the best part about it was Helen of Troy in the Themysciran armor, saying that she was trained in Themyscira. And the armor she's wearing looks exactly like the movie armor that they wore in Themyscira, which is awesome, and I count that as a Wonder Woman reference. So I love references, so that was pretty cool, and she was pretty badass as well. And then another thing is Jonah Hex being in this episode. He was really cool in the episode, and honestly, his chemistry with Zari was great. That whole storyline was great. But in conclusion, this episode was just a lot of fun. It was actually really great. It lived up to basically everything that the season built up, and the only reason it's not a 10 out of 10 episode is because I really didn't like Rip's sacrifice, because it was more of a suicide, and Mallus' character, he didn't really do much, but everything else was just so great. So I'll give this episode a 9.7 out of 10. But let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for better notifications for my videos, and also daily polls on the Arrowverse, or anything in general. Usually it's about the Arrowverse, though. Or if you don't have a Twitter, or you don't want to follow me, click the notification icon, because YouTube isn't really working. So if you want better notifications for my videos, definitely do that. And as always, thanks for watching.